What is up guys, this is Wim and in this video we will create this progressive melodic techno track from scratch. By the way, this tutorial got actually suggested by one of my Patreon master students. If you also want to decide on the content of this channel, you now have the option to vote every single month for one tutorial of your choice by becoming a master student on my Patreon site. So thanks to everyone who's already supporting me on Patreon, but let's stop talking and get started with the tutorial. So to get this really progressive and nice punchy forward driving sound, we have to find a really nice kick and also create a very nice driving and filling bass line. After that we're gonna create some nice and spacey, reverby drum sounds, which gonna create this big atmosphere in our track. And on top of that we wanna create a nice monotone sound which can further drive the track into the break, where we're gonna take some time and create those really beautiful and big atmospheric sounds. So let's get started by choosing a nice kick. I'm gonna have a look in here. I already marked some of my favorite kicks here as a favorite. This is a really nice technique to find your sounds. And yeah, we want to take a nice minimal kick, which is not too fat and distorted already. So I think this one works perfect already. We're gonna pitch it down by 1 here. Let's just keep going and create a nice 16th bass line. Now for this, I think I will just use one of my presets and maybe this rolling bass line here will work. That's still a bit too high. Yeah, this sounds very good. Now I already have some group processing here applied. Let's turn that off for now. Boost a little bit more of the higher frequencies here. And of course, you guys know me, I like to use the decapitated distortion. I think we can keep it quite minimal for now. Don't need to add much more processing. Let's try to tweak the group settings a little bit. I recently really like to use this effect from Analog Obsession. It has some nice distortion and also equalize over here. Let's see how we can use this. Now if you have some good headphones on, you will hear that this is already having a nice effect on the sub frequencies. Let's just go on with the drums and maybe we'll come back later. Now first we need a really nice and big open hi-hat. Let's see if we can find something. I think this could work already. And as I already said in the beginning, we want to create a really nice and big atmosphere with those drums. So we're going to use some sand reverb over here. Now let's create a nice white noise hi-hat with Huey Diva. We might find something in my presets over here this time. This time I'm going to use the white noise Boatswain head because it has a really nice filter applied. Just need to tweak it a little bit here, of course. It's almost like a percussion sound. Some less envelope. Let's see if that works in the track. Yeah, I think we can create something out of this. Let's do some tweakings here. Just cut away the unnecessary frequencies. And for now, this loop is just a little bit boring. Maybe we can create something by using some velocity here. Now that should be enough. Oh, that sounds already way more interesting. Yeah, recently I really like to use the UE Diva for my hi-hat sounds because you can just get way more creative here, especially with those progressive tracks. You need something that is driving the track forward and also keeping it interesting because we have it quite monotone during most of the parts. So yeah, we can do some great automations here, maybe even crank up the decay at some points, and of course playing around with this cutoff filter. Now I'm just gonna search for a bit more minimalistic clap. We don't want something too big. Could try this one here. I just always load up a couple ones and then see which one is working the best. Maybe this one here. Sometimes it's also cool to use some percussions as a clap sound, so just play around with it a little bit. So let's have a look if we find something nice here. So this nice and short minimal clap I think works the best here. Maybe we can even combine it with this percussion sound. Yeah, maybe actually not use it as a clap sound. We can also come back and use it more as a percussion sound here. So I'm gonna put it here on my percussion layer. So let's turn it off for now. Add some reverb. And you can also see there's a little bit of an attack here, so it's hitting a bit later. And let's try to just offset this a little bit, and then we maybe have this tiny reverse effect before it hits. Maybe it works, let's just play around with it. That's too much. Now, of course, that's a very minimal change, but it can just improve the groove slightly sometimes. So let's try to add that percussion sound. I think we need a big reverb on this. Well, that could be too much, but let's find a pattern here. Maybe something like so. So nothing crazy here, but you can see with this reverb especially, it's adding already a nice background atmosphere. Now I also want to add a tiny echo effect here just for the background. Maybe just for the higher frequencies here. And you can hear actually this reverb tail which suddenly disappears, so let's just try to fade that out a little bit. So I think that works for now. Let's add a little bit of sidechain so we don't have it hitting too hard on the kick here. So now this big open hi-hat sounds a bit lonely over here, but maybe we can add another open hi-hat to just add a little bit more groove here. So for those progressive tracks, I really like to use some higher frequency sounds, so not this super low and gritty hi-hats. And we also can use an equalizer later on to just carve out the low frequencies, because in those tracks it's nice to leave some extra room for the synth sounds and also just to leave some empty space also in the track. Doesn't sound too great so far, to be honest, but let's just try to make a little bit of a lower head sound out of this. Sounds already way more interesting. Maybe add some white noise. Yeah, let's try to add another 16th hi-hat, which is not white noise this time. So you can see how much this head is helping us to just add some extra drive to this track. If you want to make your track sound even a bit faster, sometimes I really like to use this delay function and just turn it down here a little bit to -5, -4, -3, something like this. What it's doing is that this head is just playing a little bit before the other ones, and that's just 5 milliseconds for now, and that just makes your track sound much faster somehow. Also, sometimes I really like to use this on this open hi-hats. Let's just see if it works for this track. So you can see, especially on this open hi-hat, it just drives the track way more forward. When it's coming in a bit earlier on this one, we don't want to do it too much because sometimes it might be hitting a little bit before the kick and then it just sounds off a little bit. Let's just do a little bit of mixing here. As I said, we don't want to have too much low frequencies in the drums. Could also try to add some white noise over here. Maybe just a tiny bit. Yeah, that drum loop works good for me. Now let's just try to add some group processing real quick and go on with the synth sounds. That's a bit too hard. Now we could even try to add some distortion with the decapitator, and that just always works good if you want to brighten up this hi-hats a little bit and just turn up the tone here a little bit. You can't hear much difference here, but from my experience, it just always adds something nice to the track. We could also try a bit of a special technique to brighten up those sounds. First of all, I'm gonna try this plugin here by Analog Obsession. So you can see this one is just helping a lot of brightening up those hi-hats. Now I actually want to go into this open hi-hat here again and just do a little bit more processing. And now maybe even add another big reverb over here. This sound is quite dynamic. Let's add some compression over here. You guys know I really like to use this compressor, and the reason why I use this compressor so often is because of course I like the sound of it, and second of all, I usually never go in here and tweak the attack and release time. For me it just always works, so I just use the input and it's already perfect for me. But let's just not bother too much with the drums and just go on and create our first synth sounds. I think for this tutorial we're gonna stick with the diva over here. And I actually wanna try a couple of those bass sounds here. Sounds quite good already. Let's play around with some presets. I think this one sounds quite interesting. We can tweak it a little bit. Sounds quite stereo. You can turn it down here. Of course, we want to add some sidechain on this one. It's quite important. Maybe we can also try this one here. Let's compress it. Let's apply the effect rack here. And of course, we're gonna try this one first. And I also want to apply some delay here. So when applying some delay effects, I really want to encourage you to just play around with the settings. Doesn't matter if you're using the Echo Boy or anything else. From my experience, every track needs a different delay, and the best is just to not use presets and just throw it in there. Play around with the notes and dot modes, and also in the Echo Boy we have this great options of playing around with those styles here. And sometimes you put it more to mono, sometimes it's nice to have it wide. Of course, usually I like to cut out those low frequencies here, but yeah, I have no particular plan here. I just play around with it, and that's just what I do most of the time. So I think now actually is a good point of switching the view here and just putting everything we have created in here. So yeah, let's just start to add a little bit of automation here. I'm gonna choose the cutoff filter. I think we can also do some nice automations here with the envelopes. Yeah, and I think the best way to just play around with it is just enable the record here and just record some humanized movement. And I actually want to see if we can find another reverb sound. This is quite a big hall reverb, and sometimes it's just nice to emphasize some synth by using a completely different reverb. So, and I also gonna go back in here and just play around with the stereo settings here. Yeah, maybe a little bit of that stereo works good. Now those progressive tracks usually also involve quite a lot of white noise. For this I actually try to create my own effects. Let's keep it simple and use the operator this time. Just put it in the white noise mode over here. And then we can already create our own effects. I usually don't want the low frequencies in here. So for this it's really nice to add quite a strong sidechain effect so we get this really nice pumping feeling. Now this white noise is sounding quite simple. Maybe we can add some effects. I would like the vinyl distortion for that. So you can see if you use this one in the stereo mode, it's also spreading your sound out a little bit into the stereo field. So that's just a very quick and easy way to get your white noise sound a little bit more interesting. Now we can also add an auto pan after this and create a bit more of a moving sound, maybe not too much. And then of course we will also automate this white noise. Maybe use the 12 octave filter here. Let's add some big reverb also so it doesn't sound too dry. Now this ends a little bit abrupt, but I really like to cut the filter down here. We can use an echo effect so it's not too abrupt, and just tweak the filter over here a little bit, add some reverb, and let's see how this sounds. Of course, we can also add some sample effects, which make it even more interesting, but let's keep it simple for this tutorial. And yeah, let's just try to design a little break here real quick. So I'm gonna take the kick here away, and we're gonna fade out this bass line a little bit by just using the utility real quick. And then we're gonna go into the full break over here. Now the same thing you can actually do with your drums. Just use an auto filter at the end. I like to use a 12 dB per octave mode for this, and let's just automate this real quick. Could look something like this, and to smooth it out a little bit, we can also add this nice and big hall reverb. But first of all, of course, we need to add some elements for the break. I will try to use something like a pad sound to have a bit more of a background noise. And then after this, we're also gonna use a bit more of a plucky, big reverb sound. But let's just start with the pad sound here. Now, as I said, this is more of a monotone sound, so we don't want a fancy melody in here. And we also don't want to have a too complex pad sound, just turning the sustain here pretty much all the way up. Actually, we don't really need any filter automation. We want to have a bit more of a static sound here, which doesn't sound too complex. So let's just see how that sounds. I think that works good for now. If we add a little bit reverb over here, of course, to fill up the space. And for this, of course, it's the same like a white noise. It's nice to add a strong sidechain effect here. And then we're gonna gently fade this in over the time here. Now we can also fade this sound out a little bit by adding this nice and big hall reverb. And also I really like to use my echo send here, which looks like this. And for that, we're just gonna add it on this last hit here, so it keeps on playing. Now, of course, this is not everything we need for a break. Let's create this nice and big, plucky, beautiful melody. I think this one could work if we turn this wow effect off. This one is just detuning your delay effect a little bit. Works nice for this Tale of Us kind of vibe, but this time we don't need it that much. Now we're gonna turn up this sand reverb quite a lot, and let's just do some basic EQing before we start with the melody. So I just came up with this very basic melody here real quick. As you can see, there's nothing crazy going on, but I just added this very big reverb, and this time I also added this Valhalla shimmer effect, which I really like to use. And as you can see, it's just adding this really nice and big atmosphere in the track. Let's just add some quick automations here. Of course, we don't want to have it moving in too rapidly, so I'm gonna take down the cutoff filter here. So that already sounds way bigger. Let's have a look how those tiny changes already affect our track. So just subtly moving in here, sounds way better. This one could be also a bit darker. So you can see we're creating a really nice transition to go into the full break here. And guys, I think this should be already it for this tutorial. Of course, we could go on and on here, but I think we already created all of the elements that you could need for this track, and you only need to finish up these automations here. I will just keep on tweaking this project a little bit so you can download later on. And of course, this project is free to download for all my Patreon supporters. So thanks again for everyone who's already supporting me. And of course, I see you in the next one.